Hare Welcome to SATSANG. Again, we have the auspiciousness of the falling rain outside that brings us back into our sweet satsang room instead of the garden. But it's, as I mentioned the other night as well, it's such an auspicious sign here in India that it's so interesting, because in the West, most of us think of a rainy day as a bad day. Cloudy day is a bad day. A sunny day are the good days. But here the rain is seen as just such exquisite blessings from the divine. And here on the banks of Ganga, we speak about Akash Ganga. Akash is the sky. So we speak about Ganga flowing literally from the sky. So it's this beautiful time in which we not only have Ganga flowing in front of us, but we even get Ganga flowing on us. So as always, we'll start with a question that's come in advance. Is workplace spirituality, or spirituality in the workplace, a positive psychological construct? So is having spirituality in the workplace good for the people who work there? Good for the psychology? Of course. I can't imagine any situation in which spirituality wouldn't be extremely positive. It's interesting because I always try to get into the being of the questioner, of what it is that inspires a particular question, whether it's from an aspect of pain that someone is having or trouble that someone is having, to a particular way of thinking about the world. And I think in a case like this, a lot of us think about the workplace as a place to get things done. Like, that's why we go to work, to get things done. And so maybe spirituality wouldn't necessarily be seen as such a positive element if we're focused on getting things done. And yet, it's actually the exact opposite on every level. First of all, the workplace is not so much about getting things done as getting us to be the types of people who can get things done while realizing and recognizing and experiencing that ultimately, as Puja Swamiji says, you are the project. We focus on our projects, but he always says, remember, you are a project. And how can we, in doing our projects, remember that actually our own awareness, our own awakening, our own spiritual expansion, that is the ultimate project. And so the workplace, like the home place, last night someone had asked about relationship and romance as an impediment on the spiritual path, and I was saying, no, it's just a different place, a different way for you to unfold spiritually. Similarly with the workplace, regardless of whether you are in the workplace, in the family, in a cave, in a school, on the top of a mountain, wherever you are, your job is the same. Wake up. Realize the truth of who you are. Experience it, know it, live it. And so the workplace is another opportunity to do that. So number one, it's not about the things that we get done. It's about who we are as the doer of the things. And the other piece that is a misconception that a lot of us think about, where spirituality and work don't go together, is people think, well, spirituality makes you very dull. I've had a lot of people say, well, I don't really want to be spiritual because then I'll be very bored, or I'll be very boring, or I really like the excitement of my life, so I don't think I want to be spiritual. Now, spirituality does not by any means make you dull. Look at the enlightened masters, the rishis, the sages. And again, choose any religion. Choose anyone. From any different historical period, from Paramahansa Ramakrishna, who interestingly today is actually his birthday. Choose him. Choose St. Francis of Assisi. Choose Rumi. Choose anyone of any religion. Were they boring? Are they bored? Look today at the masters, the awakened ones. Neither are they boring nor are they bored. So spirituality does not make you dull. the opposite. It actually pulls you out of the dullness, the numbness that thinks that the excitement of life is to be had in a nightclub or in a party or in a good movie or in a bottle of an alcoholic beverage. Or that's the numbness that spirituality pulls you out of. But it doesn't say anywhere, thou shalt not get things done. Thou shalt not be effective. Thou shalt live with your feet, a few inches above the ground or for a few feet above the ground in this wishy-washy, not grounded way. Because that's the other misconception about spirituality, is either it makes us dull or it makes us very wishy-washy and we become very, very flighty, very irresponsible, and, we can't keep our checkbooks balanced, and we lose directions, and because I'm just so engrossed in God, and that's a complete misconception. Spirituality grounds you and anchors you in a way that your mind becomes a very obedient tool in your hand rather than the master of you. So in many ways, the deeply spiritual people are actually even more effective because their minds are in their control rather than running around in a million places that they have no control over. And so there's nothing in the spiritual teachings that says thou shalt not get anything done. In fact, it's the opposite. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's a scripture, a treatise on getting things done. Doing exactly what you need to do with energy, with even in the midst of stress, in the midst of fear, in the midst of confusion, sleepless nights, but getting done what needs to get done. And so, absolutely, spirituality is something very positive to bring into our workplace, because if we do, a lot of things will shift. Number one, we'll stop looking at each other as competition. Most people think in business the only competition is the other guy's company. And if that were true, it would be great. If our only competition were the other people making the same product under a different name, we'd be halfway there. We'd still, of course, have to eventually realize, wait, they are us. Wait, it's not about competing against them. But if we could even just be there, we'd be halfway there. The dilemma is that the competition in our workplace is about who's got a nicer cubicle, who's got the desk by the window, whose name comes first on the report or the research. And so there's actually all of this even infighting, which not only keeps us from being in a deeply beautiful spiritual place in the workplace, but it keeps us from being effective workers. And so if we brought more spirituality into the workplace, the workers would be spiritually uplifted, spiritually grounded, spiritually connected. They would then be literally physically healthier. We actually know, I won't go into all the science, but we actually know that spiritual grounding and anchoring actually improves our immune system, We know it improves, obviously, our emotional well-being, our coping skills, our ability to not lose our tempers, but it also improves our physical well-being. So this is why, for example, companies like Apple, Hewlett-Packard, McKinsey, big companies that get things done, actually have meditation rooms. Apple pays people 30 minutes a day to meditate. Now, they don't have to, but you've got 30, if you were an Apple employee, you would have 30 minutes of time on the clock, paid time, to spend in the meditation room. Now you think, how many man hours, woman hours, a month, a year is Apple losing by these people sitting in the meditation room? They're not about spiritually uplifting humanity. They're about getting things done. But the science shows that people who are both grounded and uplifted spiritually are actually better at getting things done. They're actually more creative, more efficient, more effective, less likely to be confused or be confusing, less likely to lose their temper, less likely to be an inefficient, ineffective worker. So even on just that most superficial level, spirituality is good in the workplace. But on a more deep level, if as employers or CEOs or owners of workplaces, if we can be spiritually uplifted to the point of recognizing that the bottom line is not about just profits, but it's actually about the ripple impact on the planet. And it's not just about money in my pocket, but it's actually about a sustainable model in the world. Well, then workers who are uplifted and connected and grounded are those who are going to be creative innovators for ways to take our working environment into being something that not only is beneficial for the company, but that is actually beneficial for the planet. Because the truth is, those two things are not mutually exclusive. Doing well and doing good are not mutually exclusive, unless you've got tunnel vision. And so spirituality in the workplace is nothing but positive on every possible level that I can think of. So whether you are an employee or an employer or an owner or a CEO or an entrepreneur or whatever your work environment may be, the more spirituality you can bring into it, the better. Don't be afraid of it. It is not going to turn your workers into dull, listless, floating, flighty people. It's going to actually turn them into exactly what you as a company and we as a planet need. So before taking any of the other questions in advance, are there any questions here? Yes.
I have been thinking of asking you this. So, since I was a child, I had a lot of energy experiences inside, and I didn't understand what it was. I thought it was normal, and then it has been very strong and sometimes difficult, but a blessing that it took me outside normal life in many ways, which I'm happy for today. about what it was. And I came to India. This experience started when I was 4 years old already, so I had it many times, and it was energy screens from me. And then I came to India in 1987. I was around 40, I was 41. And I found a book about Kundalini. I'd never heard the word. And I was shocked when I read it. And at the same time released, my God, this is what I had been through. I had no idea. And then when I came back home, I started to Google about Kundalini, and it was warnings and warnings and dangerous, and it was, I couldn't find anything good about it. And then, of course, I've been in India many times, and I read a lot of books. And as I have heard you so many times, I love your answers. So I have a question for you. How would you describe? I have my own.
How would I describe Kundalini?
Yeah, what would you describe? Because I'm not talking about Kundalini yoga and movement.
You know, the energy.
What would you say? How would you explain it? I'm curious about that.
So, there's a lot of different philosophical ways that the Kundalini energy is described. It's important for us, though, and particularly I think for you, as you were speaking about having that energy rise in you from childhood, and yet reading so much and being told so much about it's bad, it's not right, be careful of it. It's dangerous. What you have to realize is all of that within us is actually working toward our awakening. All of that which is natural within us is all in alignment together for our awakening. The only part of us that is not in alignment with that is the part that isn't naturally us, the part that has been indoctrinated by the culture, by the society, our subconscious minds that tell us, oh, it's all about buying something, owning something, right? Because this is what we've been indoctrinated to believe. Children, little kids who have not yet seen TV commercials and, haven't yet been exposed to advertising and marketing. They don't walk down the street or go down the street in mom's arms going, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. They're in mom's arms. That is enough. They are good. It's only once the commercials start coming in, the marketing starts coming in, they go to school and the friends are, I've got this, your truck is old, my truck is new, and I'm better than you are. And then they start. But other than that which we experience in this lifetime and leaves these impressions, these sanskaras, that give us that sometimes false sense of the self, that ego sense of the self. Other than that, that which is naturally within us is aligning for our awakening. That's why we've taken the human birth. That energy is an energy that's part of awakening. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who has an awakening experience has got also an experience of Kundalini energy. It may happen without them noticing. For some people, it's very strong and very specific and distinct. For other people, it's just a very, very beautiful flow of warm energy. Electricity, the same electricity, comes to us in one way via this light bulb that's really bright in my eyes, versus through this camera in front of me, versus through the microphone, versus through a fan. It's the same electricity. But because the vehicles through which it's coming are different, the expression is going to be different. And even if it's all electricity as light, nonetheless, based on the different light bulb, that light is going to be experienced differently. So there's no right or wrong way to experience it. It definitely isn't dangerous. What's dangerous is when the ego says, no, 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 wait, I am in charge here. And so that energy is dangerous to the ego. And then the ego says in your mind, oh, this is very dangerous energy, you better stop meditating. Because the ego wants to stay in charge. And suddenly, if I have a deep experience that comes in energy, well, I realize the ego for what it is. Which is a formerly useful, now slightly disruptive presence in my life. As useful as I was growing up, this was a child. Now I'm disruptive to the extent that I let it be in charge. But the awakening of our spirituality is a threat to that ego. So the energy itself is definitely not dangerous. Nothing to worry about. It's the energy of the body. There's so many energies of the body that come to us in so many different ways. So whatever your experience was with it, or has been with it, again, sometimes it's very, very powerful. And sometimes it's just sweet. And it's all good, it's all right. But yeah, it can sometimes be something that takes you back. I remember the first time when I was aware of having that experience in that very, very physical way. I had been in India for about maybe a month. And there was a group of people who had come in from America and who had wanted to learn Reiki. And so they had asked Puja Swamiji to organize for a Reiki master to come in to teach Reiki. And I was hanging out with this group because they were the first group of English-speaking people I had met since I had come. And so they said, oh, you should come. We're having this Reiki master in the evening. I had never heard of Reiki. I had no idea what it was. But nonetheless, everything was an adventure and I didn't have anything else to do, so I went. So the Reiki master was giving everyone a level 1 Reiki initiation. And I missed the introduction to it because I was doing some seva. So I get in and there were a couple of chairs and the Reiki master had a couple of assistants, and he was just as I walked in saying, we will now be giving you all the level 1 initiation. It only lasts a few minutes. You won't feel us physically touch you. So the person who had invited me to join said, would you like to go first? I know you've got other seva you have to get back to. I said, sure. So I sit in the chair and 2-3 minutes, the Reiki master tells me to close my eyes. 2-3 minutes pass. And he didn't touch me. And after 2-3 minutes, he says, so I was only planning to give the level 1 initiation, but your chakras are so open that I can give you the level 2 initiation as well if you would like it. Now remember, those of you who know at least some piece of my story, I was 25, I was a psychology student, I had no background in spirituality whatsoever. I had no idea what a chakra was. I had never heard the word before. But I was in the midst of this extraordinary spiritual adventure, and so why not? I mean, the first one had only taken 2 or 3 minutes. I hadn't felt anything. Sure. So I say, sure. The next thing I knew, I heard his words kind of, and I literally felt them sort of come from outside kind of into my ear and sort of nestle itself in my brain before I understood that I was supposed to stand up from the chair, that I was done. So I walk out of the room, and Puja Swamiji was sitting in his garden. He didn't have the beautiful hut yet built at that time. He was sitting on the grass in his garden, giving darshan. Maybe there were 15, 20 people sitting there in front of him. He was speaking with them, maybe more. And I walked into his garden, and it was evening time. It was dark. And I sat at the very back of the group. So I was maybe 20 feet away from him, and I bowed down and just sat there. And as I'm sitting in the grass, it suddenly felt like I had sat on top of a geyser that I had seen at Yellowstone National Park, where the water just out of the, right? Yellowstone has it, Geneva has it, I don't know where else in the world they have it, but there are these places where they've got this natural sort of exploding water, minerals out of the earth, sort of like a volcano, but it's water rather than lava. So it literally felt to me like I had sat on top of one of those geysers. And it hit the top, like I felt it go all the way through me and hit the top of my head from the inside, and then swoosh around inside of me. And it then receded back into the earth. And Puja Swamiji is still speaking to the group, and finally they bow to leave, and so I also bow, and they stand and I stand, and I was about to follow them out of the garden, and Puja Swamiji caught my eye, and he motions for me to stay back. And he motions for me to follow him inside, and he opens the door to a room that I had never been in yet. I had only been there a month. And it's this storeroom, and there's books on the shelves and gifts that he'd been given that were about to be re-given to other people, sort of the gift recycling area, and books and whatnot, and a carpet like this on the ground. And he says, "Lie down." So I lie down on the ground, and he shuts off the light. And he closes the door and locks it behind him, like he's on the outside of the door, not the inside. He locks me inside the storeroom and walks off. And I lay on the carpet in that storeroom and felt the entire energy of the being just expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding, to the point where I was wondering how I was going to explain to him that I had knocked down the walls of this storeroom where he had so lovingly given me a place to lie down. But the energy of my being was so much, it was going to destroy, just bring down the walls and expand beyond it. And at some point, I have no idea how much time passed, he came back in and turned on the light and said, "How are you?" And I have no idea what I said, but whatever it was, did not convince him that I was ready to be unlocked out of the room yet. And so he turned the light back off, closed the door, locked it again, and I again went and was everything and everywhere simultaneously. And again, I have no idea how much time passed, but eventually I came back and started to have a very clear experience of being in a dark room, lying on the floor. I could feel the carpet beneath me. And a few moments later, the door opened again, and it wasn't Puja Swamiji, it was actually our cook, who says, Puja Swamiji say you eat food. And he reached down and helped me up and brought me into the kitchen and fed me a big bowl of khichdi. But I share the experience because that, in those days, that was what the energy felt like. And to me, what's so extraordinarily beautiful is that my guru, from 30 feet away in the dark, could look at me and know that girl needs to be locked up in a storeroom for a few hours in the dark. That he knew. He didn't know I had gone to the Reiki thing. I mean, he had no idea anything that was happening. But he knew from looking at me, this girl needs to just be locked up in a safe place for a few hours. But as time has gone by, the energy has taken a much sweeter quality to it. So I no longer find myself needing to be locked up someplace. I no longer have this sense that I'm going to burn through my bed or bring down the walls. But it's become much more of just a very sweet presence. And so I've experienced in my own life how that energy shifts. And again, I don't think anything is better or worse or wrong or right. Who knows? If I get a funny look in my eye, lock me up in a storeroom. But what I know is it's all good. And that the energy of awakening is all in alignment with what's right for us to awaken. And so if you haven't had an experience like that, don't worry. It's one of the reasons that I tend to not share personal experiences so much, is I don't want people to think, oh, it hasn't happened to me like that, therefore my experience is somehow less, or I'm not good enough, or I should try harder and then I'll have that type of experience. In fact, I always say, people talk about the touch of God. And for me, he really had to hit me over the head with a baseball bat to get me to pay attention. And so perhaps the dramatic nature of the experiences was because I didn't feel the touch, I didn't notice the touch, I didn't pay attention to the touch. And he literally had to come in and whack me over the head to get me to pay attention, and hence it was dramatic. But however your experience of the energy within you has been, it's all right. It's all exactly what you need. And it takes you to exactly the right place, as long as you can trust it. Never worry. Never worry. People don't actually go crazy from spiritual awakenings. That's a myth. Doesn't mean that we don't have moments of being in ecstasy. My favorite example of this, going back to Paramahansa Ramakrishna, because it's his birthday, is the story of how his disciples used to ask him to describe the different chakras of the body. And he would describe them one by one, beginning low and working up, and describe different experiences of each of them. And as he would get up to the heart, he would just enter samadhi, just be in a total trance, and his disciples would just be left waiting for hours for him to come out of the trance. And then again he would start, okay, so it's like this. And again he would get close to the heart and he would just enter samadhi. And finally after this happening so many times in a row, he looks at his disciples with tears in his eyes and he says, I want to tell you, but the mother just won't let me. And so, yeah, sometimes things like that happen, not necessarily the most coherent all the time. But you don't go crazy. Misconception. Anybody who has gone crazy and blamed a spiritual awakening is just misinterpreting, misexplaining, I mean, whether they're consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it, either way. The energy's all good. And as long as we can get our egos out of the way, so the two don't go crash into each other. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for a very good response. And it has been my greatest challenge in life in many ways, but it is my absolute greatest gift.
Yes.
Because it has taken me to a life that I...
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. And this is why, by the way, lastly, all of the spiritual practices are rooted in awakening that energy of the being. And so, whether it's a path of bhakti yoga, a path of love and devotion, a path of jnana yoga, of wisdom, a path of karma yoga, of service, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through asana, whether it's through pranayama, these are all different ways, and they all work beautifully together to help awaken the energies of the body, such that we're able to experience the truth of us that isn't the body. And so use them all, because each of them is going to work for all of us in different ways. But all of these all of these practices are rooted in awakening the energies of the being, awakening the spiritual energies of the being. Whether we call it the Kundalini energy or we call it other energies, there's also different names for it in different traditions. Doesn't matter, whatever you call it. It's the energy of you.
It's a beautiful thing about this place, because I am well acquainted with the cameras and places and shoots. I do shoots for different channels, including I make films. But the thing is, energy that you were talking about, at this moment, I can concentrate upon a particular thing. Like when I'm I'm shooting something, so my concentration is upon everything here on lights and cameras and people and their expressions as well. What makes this place so vibrant that you very easily get connected with that particular thing, the 0 point?
So the energy of this place is very, very special. And it's a bit of the chicken and egg situation, because thousands and thousands of years ago, even going back to when the scriptures were written, this was already a holy place. And then, for thousands and thousands of years, as saints and sages and rishis have come and have meditated, the energy has grown. And so it's both. It's both the actual energy that's here, the energy of Mother Ganga, the energy of the Himalayas, the energy of some extraordinary spiritual energy vortex that's here. And it's increased by thousands of years of people coming here to meditate. I've been here 23 years, and it's pretty much just over the last 25, 30 years that you could even get a cup of coffee here. And it's only been in the last maybe 10 years that you could check your email here or get a piece of pizza here. And so that which draws people here, even though today you can get pizza and you can get spaghetti and you can get Chinese food and you can check your email and not only Nescafe, but you can even find a cappuccino somewhere. But that's not what draws people here. What draws them is that spiritual energy. And so what you have is a place where people are coming to meditate. And then they're sitting and meditating. And so that's increasing the energy of the place as well. So it's both. And yeah, it's extraordinary. It's I always say in most of the rest of the world you have to sit and practice meditating. And here you pretty much just have to sit down and it happens. And this is why people keep coming back and coming back and coming back and charging their batteries. Because if you're going to charge your batteries, you certainly want to use the charger with the most energy. Yeah. Wonderful. Are you here tomorrow? Kal bhi hai aap? Take a jali le lete fir. No problem. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, whenever I just deeply, when I ask something from God, I ask for a blessing, enlighten me with the motto of my life, and also give me the strength to support that motto. So, what is important to know the motto, then do it, or just flow with the life and do whatever comes your way?
Is there any way you can be here tomorrow? Because I would like to take this as our first question tomorrow, if you can possibly stay back. Ruk sakte hain?
Speaking truly, I've already taken a day extension.
Day extension. Okay, no problem. So we'll take it. So, first of all, your life motto, I've already told you what it is. It's to wake up. And that's not because I said it. I'm just telling you what the scriptures have said, what the sages and the rishis and the saints have said. This is why you're here. Now, in that life purpose and that universal life purpose, you also have specific dharma, specific duties. And those may change throughout your life. So at a certain part of your life, your dharma is to be a student. Then your dharma may be to be a bread earner and bring it home for your family and raise your children. But to bring home the bread in a dharmic way, a way that's not only helping your family, but a way that's also helping the planet. Going back to that concept of being able to do well and do good at the same time. And at another time of your life, your dharma may be different. You may also have more than one dharma at one time, so there may be a dharma to your family. And also a dharma in the workplace. Duty here, lots of different ways. And they're all different opportunities for us to wake up. Different opportunities for us to experience that simultaneous existence of my body, my role, my duty, and the fact that I'm just soul. Never born, never dying, not separate from any other soul. And to find that place in you in which you can live in both realities at once. It's not either or. The spiritual awakening does not mean, oh, away with my body, away with my duty, away. No. But to find that inner awakening, inner experience in which you actually can live in both of them simultaneously. The awareness, I'm soul. And in this particular incarnation, in this body, these are my duties. This is the way at this time in my life, different than at other times in my life. At this time in my life, I get to be this tool in God's hands. So allow yourself to be utilized by God. Allow your motto to be, okay, God, thy will be done. If that becomes your motto, then everything you do is in service of God's will. And then, whether you know where you're going or not, you don't worry, He knows. If you get in a car with a driver you trust, you don't have to be Google mapping it the whole time. You know, que vou pra onde vai, right? But if you don't trust the driver, or you're driving yourself, then yeah, you better pay attention. But if you've connected and you have faith and you've surrendered, this is why in the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna serves as a charioteer. Right? I mean, he could have been anything. He was God. Whatever role he wants, it was his. Why did he choose to be the charioteer? What's the message there? To remind us, Hare Yad, let me drive your life. Bed jao. Ya khade ho jao, depending on what's needed at different times. I'm driving it. So have that faith.
Connecting with this same thing, what is the significance of Guru in that case? When Brahma is driving, how Guru connects?
So we'll begin tomorrow with the conversation on the Guru. Our kitchen is going to start serving food in about 7 minutes, 8 minutes. So I want to make sure that everybody who's interested in having dinner is able to be there to enjoy it. And we'll start about the Guru tomorrow.